Okay, so welcome back to the channel and another bike review. This time we've got this bike here. It's a 2008 Honda CBR 600RR. So the CBR 600 now has been around for over 30 years. The first rendition being all the way back in 1987 with the CBR 600F, which at the time was the first proper super sport 600 machine. Fast forward to 2003, and that's when Honda got really serious when the first 600RR was released, which saw really shift from a practical sports bike to a bike that was built predominantly just for the track. This bike is the second rendition of that original 600RR. The bike looks great and really only improves on everything that the original 600RR got right. And so the heart of the bike here is the 598 inline 4. This is actually physically smaller than the engine from the previous generation, but actually produces more usable power. So central air scoops are common practice nowadays in sports bikes and super sport machines. The CBR 600RR got one on the 2007 redesign. The primary focus of that was to get more air in through the cone here into the engine to help reduce the mid-range lack of power that the previous generation suffered from. The lighter engine is just part of the weight-saving diet that the CBR went through. We've also got a lighter frame, a more compact frame, and a shorter wheelbase. All in all, helps to save around 10 kilograms off the previous generation. Up front here we have fully adjustable preload, rebound and compression, and the same here at the back with Honda's own ProLink setup. And hidden beneath the steering column here is the Honda's electronic steering damper, or HESD as it's known. This actually featured on the Fireblade at the time. For brakes, up front we have dual radial mounted 4-piston calipers with three 10mm discs. In the back we have a single piston caliper with a two 10mm discs.
So, being out on the bike, one of the first things you really notice is actually how small it feels. Sorry if you can hear any wind noise, it's obscenely windy today. But yeah, the bike feels absolutely tiny. So as you're commuting around town and sort of stuck in bits of traffic, in all honesty, the bike feels so light and so easy to ride. I mean, there's one thing particularly the Japanese bikes are renowned for, and it's just being pleasing everybody, you know. They're so easy to ride. What's quite nice, I mean, I know it's only a 600, but sort of where we are now, between like 3,000 and 5,000 RPM, it's quite happy just sat. It's not really wanting to go too much. It's really just making it a pleasure to ride around town in traffic like this. The clutch is nice and light, the brakes are good. Does seem to drone quite heavy there, around 3,000 RPM, but you know, make no mistake, even though the bike can be used for commuting, it's not a commuter, it's a super sport machine. It's predominantly built for the track. Again, just sat in the slower traffic here through residential areas, you might as well be on a scooter. So easy to ride. Sat here in third gear, twist and go. Obviously, where we are today is quite rural anyway. You know, we don't tend to get that heavy traffic, but if you did live in a city or something like that, you can fold the mirrors in here and you're gonna have no problem at all filtering on this bike. It's incredibly thin, incredibly easy to maneuver. Okay, so we'll just clear this town and we'll get onto some of the bigger roads and we'll see how she fares up. So for anybody that watches the channel, may be wondering why I never recorded the final episode of the 600RR overhaul series. So I did all the work on the bike, and my plan was initially to make a final video putting everything back together, and I had quite a decent amount of vinyl wrap, and I was wanting to carbon wrap the exhaust heat shield, the black inserts that go from the tank to the middle fairing, possibly these little sort of cannons that are on the side of the fairing, side of the front. Turns out I absolutely suck at trying to wrap anything. I'm not gonna lie, I saw my ass a little bit with it, so ended up ditching that idea entirely, and what I think I will do is get them hydro dipped at some point in the future. So the video would have basically been a montage of me swearing and basically bolting the fairings back onto the bike, which I didn't think had been the most interesting viewing, so I never actually bothered recording it. But if you're interested, I will happily record me taking the parts back off and taking them up to the hydro dipping centre, just so you can see what's involved with that. So again, the bike is just so easy to ride. It just does exactly what you want it to do and responds exactly how you'd expect it to respond. So the bike is somewhere around the region of 120 brake horsepower and weighs just under 150 kilograms. It pulls hard consistently through the rev range, but things really get going once you get to somewhere between 10 and 10,500 RPM. The only real problem is getting to that power band. It's so high in the rev range. The bike is absolutely screaming. Obviously, you pick up so much speed while you're climbing the revs. It kind of makes that power band almost impossible to really use on the road. I'd have thought if you get to a track, you're not going to have any problems at all. Just keep the RPM up, keep it singing all the way, but on the road, it's not. Doesn't quite work as well somehow. But it is a 600cc bike, let's not forget that. When you actually consider the size of the engine and to carry the weight of itself and me and potentially a pillion as well, to achieve what it achieves is incredible really. Not sure if you can see here on the video, but the mirrors that we put on in the overhaul series, I was a little bit torn between them initially. I didn't really like them that much, but they've grown on me, and I think you can actually see a little bit more out of these mirrors than what you could off the stock mirrors. And obviously you do benefit from having the turn signals included as well, which is nice. This bike feels incredibly balanced. It doesn't have any of the rider aids that some of the more recent bikes have got. From 2009 onwards, you got ABS as standard on this bike. So this version obviously doesn't have that. You don't have any of the toys that you get on the modern bikes either. You know, there's no traction control, no wheelie control, nothing like that. But despite that, it's incredibly balanced. I'm a huge fan of the front brake as well. Between the brake and the tyre combination, it's hard to gauge it on the road like this, but I'd imagine if you got onto a track, and what the hell is all this? Well, all this lot on the road is the exact reason that you don't carry too much speed into a corner on the road. What was I saying? Yeah, the front brake and the tyre, I think if you're on the track, you'd reap the benefits of that so much. You can really hold the front brake almost till the apex of the corner, you know, right until the point you're ready to power back out, so you can brake as late as possible, and you have you feel like you have full control of what the front's doing. You can really feel just how it's interacting with the road and how it's gripping everything. Really nice. The bike's very comfortable as well. So I've been riding it for the afternoon now, and I've got no aches. There's not much pressure on your wrist. It is quite an angular seating position, but it seems softened somehow. I'm not too sure exactly how. I think possibly the shorter wheelbase just pushes your spine into a little bit more of a vertical position. If you see the RSVR review that I did the other week, that was the exact opposite. You almost felt you were horizontal for most of the time. You're really forced into sort of getting your head to the screen. But it's not quite the case on this. Much easier to ride. Alright, no worries.
So after spending the afternoon on this bike, I'm really struggling to pick any major faults with it. Potting around town, weaving in and out of traffic, the bike is so easy to ride. Once you get out onto the open air roads, it almost transforms to a completely different bike. Very lively, very exciting to ride. The steering on the bike is incredibly light. It really allows you to throw the bike from side to side, and the feedback from the front is especially good. It's really easy to hold the brake for a long time into a corner and then power back out of it again. If I did have to pick a fault with the bike, the power band is really high in the rev range. It's around 10 to 10,500 RPM. Once you get that far up into the rev range, the bike is absolutely screaming. You're going to be carrying a lot of speed as well, so it doesn't really make it that usable for the road. There's plenty of grunt right away throughout the rev range, but if you're wanting to make the most of that little sort of peak power area that you've got, you're probably really going to need to be on the track. So that is probably more a trait of the 600 class rather than a specific problem with the CBR. A slipper clutch would have been a nice addition. I'm not sure why Honda didn't include one, being that most of the similar spec bikes, similar size bikes from the same era all had slipper clutches on from standard. I'm not sure why Honda chose not to include one. If you are in the market for a CBR 600, the 2007 to the 2008 model that we've got here is commonly referred to as a once to get. You've got all of the enhancements from the original 600RR, but you've actually got more power and more grunt, as the 2009 bikes onwards were actually zapped by the emissions rules that they needed to adhere to. If you've been here on the channel for a little while, you're probably going to recognise this bike. So this is from our CBR 600RR overhaul series that we did during lockdown. So I spent quite a lot of time with this bike, general maintenance and a few improvements as well. If you own a CBR 600 or possibly looking at getting one, I would recommend taking a look at that channel. I will leave a link in the description down below. With that being said, thanks very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please do leave a like down below, it really helps us out. Please do consider subscribing. We have lots of exciting superbike content planned over the coming weeks. Thanks again, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.